the House just a few days ago, and it includes increased work requirements for the receipt of SNAP or food stamps. And President Trump, after they passed in the House, tweeted out that he was happy to see work requirements included. So again, I think we need to reject this idea that hard work is the route out, that is the solution to poverty. All right, so in terms of thinking about wealth, I think coming from the literature then, I think we need to reject this idea that there's no negative outcomes from amassing wealth. Again, coming out of this body of literature. And here I want to talk about tax reform. So although tax reform passed in 2017, I think sort of using that again as a case study to be thinking about this is important. So we know from some research that framing tax proposals as benefiting everyone leads to larger endorsements. And if you go back and you remember, you go back and look at this, this is a lot of the rhetoric. This is in fact, they were actually very smart. They framed the tax reform in this way. It's going to benefit all of us. And in fact, when Trump was speaking at a rally about this, trying to get some support for increasing this, he said it's very specifically, it's not going to help the wealthy. We're really going for everyone else. When in fact, a tax policy center analysis of the bill actually found, no, actually, like there'll be some things, right? Some people will benefit, but the largest amount of benefits are actually going to go to the wealthy. Okay, and so thinking about more money as the solution for everyone is not really the solution, and it is especially not the solution when it does nothing to address the underlying inequality, right? So if everyone's going to get something, which is in fact not what happened, right? But if everyone were going to get something, it still does nothing about this inequality. Okay, and in fact, we just continue to give wealth at the top. And purpose of time, I'm going to jump over that one, and I'm just going to come to inequality and talk about inequality benefiting all of us, right? So we've seen from this data that in fact inequality is bad for us, so inequality actually benefits all of us. So here I want to talk a little bit about educational policy, and here I want to come back, since I focused on Trump in the last one, to come back to Carnegie and come a little bit full circle in my talk, right? So I told you that Carnegie gave a lot of money for these libraries because he really believed in access of education as a route out, right? And if you look at our policies, or if you actually look at the data, and again, I'm sorry, these are so small, but if you look at the data that, in fact, that stickiness that I told you about, there's significantly less stickiness at the bottom if the family gets a college degree, right? So in the next generation, those kids are much less likely to end up in poverty themselves if their parents got a college degree than if they didn't, okay? So this is one of the accesses, or one of the routes out. So what we're doing when we're blocking access really is reifying this inequality of access. Right now, and if you paid attention, some SPICY members actually in February went and lobbied on Congress on the higher education reauthorization. And in fact, this is still ongoing, so although that was back in February, the PROSPER Act is out of committee, but not yet voted on in the House. It is still in committee on the Senate side, and this bill is going to do all kinds of bad things, basically. So in terms of limiting access, in terms of making college more expensive, and not go through a bunch of these. I can answer them if you have any questions about it. But ultimately, what we're going to do here, the net effect, really is that education is going to be more expensive and it's going to be less accessible. All right, last things. So just in terms of conclusion, putting this all together, I'm really giving these critiques with the hope that we work together. So I have another paper in which I've given some critiques about things that we need to do in order to increase some research here. I really see this in the same kind of vein. I'm not critiquing because I'm saying you all did it bad. So lots of the stuff that I have made mistakes on, right, that I'm not doing it perfectly by any means at all. But that is an invitation for us to work together, because what I really want us to be able to do is to have that science that we feel is really foundational, that we feel really comfortable from advocating for. And so if we don't pay attention to what are the problems in our data, or where are the gaps, then we're not going to get that solid base of research in order to be able to advocate from. So within that line, although we have much more research on poverty, again, I think we need to continue to problematize wealth, to continue to study that, and to continue to think about the issues of inequality. Finally, in terms of thinking about our policies, if we want to do something to redress some of these inequalities, I don't think this necessarily, and that's why I picked these particular programs, I'm not saying create new programs, right? I think we actually have some really great programs and we have some answers, but I think the problem is we're not advocating from our science to say why we need to keep these programs, right? Why the changes and the ways that they want to make changes are actually bad for us. Okay. That's all I have in terms of my thank you. Some of you know that there's a tradition since I was a graduate student in Heather Bullock's lab that we build pyramids here at SPICY. And so I offer this both as a literal and as a figurative thank you. So a literal thank you to my collaborators and to my mentors and the people I've worked with over the years. And also as sort of a figurative, SPICY has been so foundational, such the building block for me, and so this is really just a really genuine thank you to you for this opportunity.